powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another early morning edition of Unconventional Playbook. We are about 2 hours away from game time. The Minnesota Vikings versus the New York Jets. Are you up? Are you up? Are you up? It's weird waking up in the morning watching football this early. I feel like I'm on the West Coast somewhere, like in California, getting ready for the Vikings game. But nonetheless, UP Nation, Skull Nation, Vikings Nation, Purple Nation, we got to be ready for the dismantling of the New York Jets. You know, I can't wait for this game. You know, it's going to be weird going against Aaron Rodgers in a New York Jets uniform instead of the Green Bay Packers uniform. But we won't talk about the Green Bay Packers because we got rid of them last week. And so now we're on to the New York Jets. This is going to be a very interesting game. Aaron Rodgers has been playing up, you know, that he's injured. His knees are swollen. He's a little bit sore. But I think that's a lot of gamesmanship. I hope the Minnesota Vikings don't fall for that. Aaron Rodgers is one of the most smartest quarterbacks in the league. And I'm hoping that defensive line is a little bit disciplined today because, you know, he's got that cadence. There's been a lot made of that the last couple of weeks between Aaron Rodgers and Salah because, you know, their offensive linemen have been false starting because of Aaron Rodgers' cadence. And he's always been really good at that, you know, saying that green 19, you know, and getting people to jump. So, you know, I'm hoping that he doesn't get a couple of penalties, you know, going his way with the Minnesota Vikings. Those guys just have to stay disciplined. And when you talk about the Minnesota Vikings playing in London, these guys have been undefeated over there. They have not lost. They've always been successful. And I thought it was interesting that KOC was talking about, you know, they're not going to deal with getting acclimated to the jet lag over there. They're going to play it out because that's a double-edged sword. You know, if you get acclimated going over there, you have to get acclimated coming back. So they're just going to deal with the time change and ball out tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. I know that, you know, getting acclimated to the time zone over there is very difficult. I did it with the USA basketball team this summer. We traveled to Ireland, Germany, and Italy, and then participated in the United World Games. And I thought that was one of the most difficult parts of the trip is just getting acclimated to the time. So I know the Minnesota Vikings said they aren't going to deal with that. We will see how that affects them during the game. Now, everybody talks about Sam Darnold, you know, playing against the Jets, you know, because they drafted him and this is going to be a revenge game. I don't see it that way. I don't think Sam Darnold sees it that way. I know internally he probably feels like he's got something to prove and to show the Jets because they gave up on him. But I don't think that fire burns so hot with Sam. He's been so far removed from the New York Jets, and I think he's happy to be with the Minnesota Vikings. Don't get me wrong. I know he wants to win, but I don't think it's on his mind as a revenge game. You know, I think, you know, if we were playing the Carolina Panthers because he's more recently removed from that organization, more so than the New York Jets organization, that would have a little bit more heat to it in terms of revenge. But I don't look at this as a revenge game for Sam Darnold. He may look at it that way, but I don't think he honestly feels that way. I think he's just going out to get a win. You know, the thing about this game, you know, that I always hate when it comes to these London games, this would have been a home game for the Minnesota Vikings, I believe. So they don't get a chance to play in front of Minneapolis and their fans. But don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. There's a lot of purple over there in London. There's a lot of Minnesota Viking fans over in London that will come out and support the team. I know there's a lot of people from Minnesota traveling over to London to support the team. So it will feel somewhat like a home game. It's not the same as US Bank Stadium at home, but, you know, if there's a home away from home, it's probably the field over the pond in London. So I think the Minnesota Vikings are looking forward to playing in front of their fans. I'm looking forward to the B-Flow defense, man. I'm looking forward to the B-Flow defense playing in front of that Rockets crowd. I think Patrick Buchanan made a great point in our last podcast when we were previewing this game that this is probably the least mobile quarterback that we've played all year. For Aaron Rodgers' age, he still can move a little bit, but I know he is a little bit banged up. And, I know when you have that Achilles tear, that's always in the back of your mind. So I don't think he's looking to run around too much. He will do enough in the pocket to try to get away, but I think all the fronts and the stunts that B-Flow is going to throw at him, I think he's going to have, a big problem. Look at that component of the game to be the difference, especially in the first half, and see what adjustments the New York Jets can make in terms of their offensive line and Aaron Rodgers being able to recognize things at the line. I think B-Flow is going to try to do a really, really good job of confusing him and putting the advantage to the Minnesota Vikings defense. The New York Jets has this reconfigured offensive line. And so that's going to play a big part. And I think going up against B-Flow's defense, I thought the one thing about the Green Bay Packers offensive line is those guys have a little bit of chemistry, and they've played together for a little bit. And so I thought they handled, the Vikings rush pretty decently last week. I don't see the New York Jets being able to do that tomorrow because they've been, duct taping this thing together in terms of the offensive line. They haven't played well. And so when you have to duct tape things together, it's not as solid. And so what you have is an offensive line that really isn't used to playing together going up against one of the most deadly fronts in the NFL in terms of the Minnesota Vikings. So I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble. The one thing about the New York Jets that I'm really concerned about for this game, and you'll sit in a couple hours, the New York Jets in that daunting backfield that they have led by Breece Hall. I mean, they are outstanding, and I think if they're running the ball well, they're going to take a little bit of the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers to be the hero. And so I think that together with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, they have about 495 scrimmage yards, 5 touchdowns so far this season. They're going to try to rely on them to run the ball, to not put Aaron Rodgers in danger, to keep the Minnesota Vikings defense off balance. When you have a good running game, you can go to the play action pass. I think the New York Jets are going to try to do that. If the Jets stand back there and have Aaron Rodgers throw the ball 40 to 50 times a game, which I think is a bad game plan, I think it's over for the Jets. If the Vikings can get ahead, and make Aaron Rodgers have to drop back a little bit more to throw the ball and have to play catch up, I think that bodes well for the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson. Have you seen the pictures of Justin Jefferson and Jake Reed and Chris Carter over there in London? I mean, this guy, JJ, Jets, whatever you want to call him, he's a sure first ballot Hall of Famer. And he is going to be in the annals of Vikings lore. He's going to be in that circle of honor in U.S. Bank Stadium soon. And to see some of the old heads, Jake Reed and Chris Carter and all these guys, you see Randy Moss on NFL Sunday Countdown. These guys all support Justin Jefferson, and that's good to see. When you talk about a guy that has made the impact for the Minnesota Vikings, Gruger Hill, it's going to be interesting to see his role with Ivan Pace Jr. coming back to play. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has made an impact. He's been really good down the middle of that defense, making plays, 2 interceptions his last 2 games. I hope he gets some run today because the guy has great awareness. He's very heady. He's a ball hawk. He's always around the ball. And, when Ivan Pace went down, you always have that mentality of next man up. And he has been doing a fantastic job for the Minnesota Vikings. Key matchup that I want to see is this guy, Sauce Gardner. Now, he gets a lot of accolades, and I think JJ is going to eat him up. JJ's got this bullseye on his back. Everybody wants to take him on. Jair Alexander for the Green Bay Packers was talking all this trash the week before and end up not even being able to show up to dance with Justin Jefferson last Sunday. I mean, how you going to talk stuff and then not be able to come out and play? Well, Sauce Gardner is going to try to be up for the challenge, but I don't think he has anything for Jets during that game. I think they're going to have to roll some safeties over. They're going to have to double team, but guess what? We've got Jordan Addison on the other side. that has been playing exceptionally well this year. When he's healthy, came back last game, made an instant impact. And then they got Aaron Jones out of the backfield and my boy Speedy Naylor as that third wide receiver. So I think the Jets defense is supposed to be good. It's going to have their hand full in about 2 hours with the Minnesota Vikings. This should be a really, really good game. I think the Minnesota Vikings are the better team. I don't think this is going to be a walkover game. I think the Jets are desperate. They need to get that bad taste out of their mouth last week when they couldn't score any touchdowns, 9 points. And I think Aaron Rodgers was obviously upset with that. You know, there's been speculation that he didn't like the game plan and he's been criticizing the game plan. And so he wants to try to come in and get a W. I know that they've been focused all week. They know the task that they have in front of them in terms of trying to beat the Minnesota Vikings, and the Minnesota Vikings know what they have to do to beat them. So I think it's going to be a real big competitive game for both teams. But I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to come out on top with this one, and they are going to be 5-0. The favorite is 34-10. Over in London. Vikings are undefeated over there, so they understand what it takes to win. Even though some of those victories were under a different coaching staff, this team has just always played well over in London. So I hope UP Nation, I hope you're up. I hope you got your cup of coffee. I hope you got your breakfast. Skull Nation, Purple Nation, Vikings Nation. I hope you guys are getting ready for a great football game. Patrick Buchanan and myself will check in with you live tonight, 8 p.m. post-game to talk about the Minnesota Vikings victory. I hope you guys are up. I hope you got your caffeine because this is going to be a hot one. Minnesota Vikings looking to go 5-0 against the New York Jets. This has been Unconventional Playbook. We will make sure to see you when we see you tonight at 8 p.m. to celebrate a Minnesota Vikings victory. Latre, I hope you're up. Latre in Portland, it's going to be about 6:30 game time for you in Portland, Latre, so I hope you're up. So take us home, Latre.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?